out today to support the Tule elk. I want to start off by showing gratitude to the Coast Miwok and Native peoples who protected this land for hundreds and hundreds of years before colonization. They are entitled to enjoy this land, to show us how to protect it. We have so much to learn from them. We're here to talk about the indigenous elk as well. At one time, there were 500,000 Tule elk in California. They were hunted to near extinction, and they are now down to 5,000. And the largest population of Tule elk reside in Point Reyes National Seashore. They are threatened. And that is why we're all here today. I want to thank you for coming. Let's restore this land to its natural habitat, to its natural ecosystem, so that all wildlife can thrive again. And we've got some amazing speakers today. The first one I want to bring up is Skylar Thomas, whose epic film, The Shame of Point Reyes, debuted at the Mindful Eating Film Festival 2 years ago at the Dance Palace here in Point Reyes. And he changed hearts and minds about what is happening in Point Reyes.
Thanks everyone for being here today, and thank you to the organizers. Those of you, anyone not liking us being here today might stick around to learn, because one of the challenging things documenting Point Reyes was sifting through myth and reality. It's hard to believe it was 4 summers ago that I started documenting this. 4 summers ago already. And it's harder to believe that every one of those years has been filled with so much more shocking, devastating information that I can't even keep up with it. And I've got to say that I'm tired. I'm tired of not wanting to enter what was once a favorite place of mine to visit, because my newly opened eyes tell me a depressing story, not an inspiring one. I'm tired of a Park Service staff that sound more like the politicians and lobbyists that were hired to amend the parks legislation, rather than sounding like wildlife ecologists. I'm tired of looking out over the pastoral wasteland where once an incredibly biodiverse habitat stood, while hearing from the Marin Conservation League that it's a marriage of wildlife and agriculture. A marriage where one spouse would be in jail for abusing the other one, where one spouse bulldozes and shoots the other. I'm tired of hearing the story of small struggling ranch families when in reality 80% of the ranches on the Point Reyes National Seashore are leased to 4 families whose collective land holdings in Marin County total over 24,000 acres. I'm tired of hearing about multi-generational families, how important the land is to them, how deeply connected they are to the land, while we simultaneously ignore 10,000 years of history of people who are actual stewards of the land. The people that lived there before for a millennia, rather than bringing it to its knees in a few hundred years. I was, of course, speaking of the Miwok people previously, the people whose history is sadly pushed under the carpet. I'm tired of the word historical meaning a stubborn dedication to a carefully selected and relatively brief but destructive period of time in history, and stubbornly sticking to that rather than adjusting and evolving for what's best to the future. I'm tired of hearing about the economic importance of the ranches, even as new articles come out about even more mind-blowing funding coming from the state and Fed to keep an industry that is crippled alive. In the meantime, the preserved portions of the ranch that have the intrinsic value of simply existing, the value of nature, that costs us nothing other than to allow it to live and exist, bring in tourist dollars that dwarf anything the ranch's output. I'm tired of hearing the most intelligent species on the planet declare that another animal species miraculously doesn't need its mother shortly after birth for no scientific reason, just the economic reason that an industry has decided to take the mother's milk away and give it to another species. I'm tired of seeing conserve water signs in communities that are blindly dedicated to the most insanely water-intensive industry you could imagine. I'm tired of the word sustainable being used to describe something that is shockingly unsustainable. I'm tired of locals being intimidated into silence. It's time to rise up. Because the California Coastal Commission isn't going to do the right thing. The Marin County Board of Supervisors will not do the right thing. The Marin Conservation League and other so-called environmentalist groups consisting of and influenced by ranchers will not do the right thing. The Park Service that ignores its own environmental impact study results will not do the right thing. It is up to us, it is up to you, it is up to all of us to hold them accountable and not to stand for it anymore. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Nature versus agriculture. This is a very important topic as we enter the 21st century and decide how humans will continue to live on Earth in the context of a dying ecosystem. So this film beautifully portrays the microcosm of this larger global picture in Point Reyes National Seashore. I urge you all to see it. So Skylar Thomas, thank you so much. I'd like to next bring up Matthew Polveronis Klein, who is a wildlife photographer who was the first to find carcasses of elk that had died from starvation and thirst.
I'm a freelance wildlife photographer and cameraman living in West Marin. I've been photographing wildlife in Point Reyes National Seashore for many years. I was asked to say something today about my time with the Thule elk more specifically. It's not an easy thing for me to discuss what happened to those elk out there, that so-called die-off. If you know me or know my work, then you know that I have always pursued my craft in an immersive way, and it's easy for me to get attached to the wild ones I spend time with. Nevertheless, I can tell you that I do not believe the words die-off accurately reflect the situation we have on our hands out there. This is a shameful, dishonorable, short-sighted, unacceptable, embarrassing, unscientific, and 100% completely unnatural kill-off. It's an absolute disgrace taking place on our public land. No amount of cow crap can change this fact. If you think anything about this is natural, then you really have your head in the sand. A few things should be pointed out. The most obvious is that there is a large 8-foot fence preventing these Tomales Point elk from naturally ranging.
Take it down! Take it down!
Take it down! Take it down! Take it down! Take that damn abomination down, Park Service. You know, believe it or not, behind that new fence they put up out there, they have a portion that's old and a portion that's new. They have older fence in some places attached to newer fencing. Some of this older fence material is just sitting there rusting. It's broken in places, scattered in others, and hazardous as well. I actually found a magnificent bull out there one day, along with this damn fence, with some of the old fence material wrapped around its antlers. What is natural about that? The number 152 has been quoted a lot, but in fact, it's over 152 elk. that died in the reserve last year. When the Park Service tells everyone that there was a decline of 152 individuals in population from one year to the next, you have to remember that there were a number of newborn calves last year, birthed and added to that herd. I know this because I spent time with some of those cute, innocent youngsters. So it was actually over 152 elk that died. These details matter, and who you get them from matters as well.
That's right.
When it comes to the Park Service's water map released last fall, I believe that is incredibly misleading for them to say that this map was an accurate and truthful assessment of the water available in the reserve for the elk at the time. I was shocked to find locations that were marked as blue dots. I mean, their map is remarkable. It's blue dots all over the damn place. I'm surprised they didn't mark the ocean and say, oh, there's water there too. I mean, it's ridiculous. I was shocked to find locations that were marked as blue dots on their map being bone dry, others full of mud, others inaccessible to the elk, others with dead elk stuck in mud, or even elk dead in a drainage where one could imagine adequate water perhaps existing at another time of year. There were locations that I honestly thought could supply little more than a small songbird with a bath, but nothing more. I think we basically came to the conclusion that some in the Park Service were trying to pull a public relations stunt. I mean, why else would they exaggerate the map to this degree, especially when there are some locations out there with water? Why try and convince the public that there was way more water than there actually was? I think it's now prudent to read you something that I'm certain you will find shocking, especially given the Park Service's reaction to our pleas for assistance this past year and in years past. And this is a quote. The fate of many tule elk in Point Reyes National Seashore last year largely hinged on whether or not they were enclosed in a fence. The fenced herd at Tamales Point dropped by 20% during 2014, while the two free-ranging herds grew, according to Seashore wildlife ecologist Dave Press. The Seashore attributes the success of free-ranging herds to their ability to seek out forage and water at a time of drought. This was published in March 2014 in the Point Reyes Light after the previous tragic kill-off. The same kill-off which was supposed to bring about a contingency plan. So much for that. These elk are not robots. Like us, they have preferences. They have territories and areas they feel safe in. They have competition among themselves over what water is available. They have anxieties too. They go through their own risk assessments and feel uncomfortable trying to access water and forage in some locations more than others. They are wild animals, even if they have been held captive and prevented from living a more wild existence. You know, I often hear that this is quite personal for this person or that person. Well, it's quite personal for me too. For many of us here today, it's quite personal. I can tell you for certain that it was quite personal for those dead elk. And it's quite personal for the other captive ones still just trying to survive. Those others that only have us to be their voice. I know that there is a whole lot more to discuss. For instance, like the disease called Yonies that our native elk get from invasive cattle, or like the mineral deficiencies that have been documented by the park. I still believe that our seashore presents the most promising location to restore native California coastal prairie habitat, which, in case you are wondering, is the most species-rich grassland type in North America. And yet, there's only 2% of this habitat type left on Earth. What are we doing here in National Seashore? What are we waiting for? If not here, then where? And if not now, then when? Of course, let us not forget about the numerous other unique and important flora and fauna that remain rare, threatened, and or endangered, hindered by a park prioritization of destructive agriculture leases. There are birds like the snowy plover. Yeah, thank you. Honk away. Let the town hear you. There are birds like the snowy plover, which would greatly benefit from the termination of ranch leases. There are amphibians like the California red-legged frog, which, believe it or not, exist in some of those pond sites in the Tamales Point Reserve. Doesn't the Park Service know that they have an obligation to protect and help restore this federally listed endangered species?
Right.
How about species of concern like western pond turtles or monarch butterflies? Let's not forget about threatened marine eelgrass, which is a type of seagrass absolutely critical to healthy interconnected marine ecosystems. This species of seagrass would benefit from cleaner waterways and less eutrophication and pollution from animal agriculture. Let us not forget that we already have cattle all over West Marin. Don't we have enough cattle not just here but everywhere else?
Yes. Too many.
The fact is, and these are statistics from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, okay? There are over 5 million cattle in California alone, and over 94 million in the United States. Why must we prioritize this deeply destructive industry in our national seashore, the only one on the West Coast? Isn't this seashore a part of the UNESCO Golden Gate Biosphere Reserve? Isn't the Park Service aware that we are in the grip of a biodiversity and climate crisis?
Yes.
It's rather mind-boggling when you look at all the facts. Nevertheless, even when I'm constantly confronted with so many reasons to be pessimistic, I try to remain optimistic about our seashore and its future. I try to be optimistic about the promising potential this place still holds. Imagine free-ranging elk and no barbed wire or electric fences anywhere.
Yeah.
Imagine the possibilities to restore our disappearing natural heritage. I don't know if Secretary Howland will step in and scrap that dishonorable alternative B plan, but I sure hope she does. Far too much is at stake. Thank you to everyone out there who is listening and willing to learn. Lastly, I want to dedicate my energy and being here today for my newborn son. Getting in front of crowds is definitely not my cup of tea, as you can probably tell. But I hope we do right by you and your generation and many other generations yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Matthew's photographs come straight from his heart. My name's Matt McGuire. I spent 8 years on the Petaluma City Council, although that was a long time ago, so I like to think I'm a reformed politician, but I've seen how things work from the inside. And one of the things that I think is really critical here is that we continue to educate everybody, because the more people find out the facts and the truth about this situation, the more pressure we bring on our electeds. And we will be able to change this. We are changing this. We have seen some significant improvements in action in the last week or so. The Harvard Law Clinic is suing the Park Service. The Park Service finally gave in and is bringing water to the elk. Okay, but that's a PR move, because they say those elk died because of malnutrition. Well, that's splitting hairs, but if they're going to give them water, what is that, to keep them alive longer, to die of a torturous starvation death? Well, that's real good, Park Service. The fact of the matter is they're going to cave on that too, and it's going to be pretty soon because of us. And I want to thank all the good citizens that we see here. You guys showed up, you stepped up. People who come out like this are unique. We are the vanguard, but we are the catalyst. We are the ones that are going to change public opinion. It is moving now. We are making progress now. We come out today mostly to talk about the elk, but let's not forget the context here. It was in the 1960s and 70s that the federal government purchased the land from the ranchers to create the seashore. The deal at the time was they were paid market value, millions and millions of dollars, which they went and used to buy mostly other land in Marin County and Sonoma County, but they were paid market value and given a lifetime tenancy or 25 years. That 25 years was up like 20 years ago. Those guys have reneged on the deal. They've had a good run. They've had a great run for their benefit. We've helped subsidize them. But their day is up. Those ranchers are gonna go. It's just a matter of time. And we're going to make that time come sooner because we're going to put pressure on our electeds. And the first one we want to pressure is Jared Huffman. Jared is our congressman. He's done some good stuff in the environmental realm, but he is completely at odds with his own reputation and with the public opinion on this. Every person we talk to, every person I've talked to, without exception, has said, "What the F? Why are you taking this position? This is wrong. It is clearly wrong." So we need to just keep educating the other members of our society and tell them, put the pressure on, right?
Vote him out! Vote him out!
Unfortunately, in the political realm, there's nobody out there that looks better to run against him. So we have to put pressure on him to change, right? These guys have reneged on their deal, and the Park Service has been their handmaiden in this deal. This is a missed opportunity for Huffman, for anybody that's not backing our effort. This is a missed opportunity because this is the unique jewel on the West Coast with its beauty, its diversity, and its underlying natural health. And you may have heard of the 30 by 30 program. That's where scientists are telling us we need to preserve 30% of the land mass and water in the world by 2030. That's 9 years from now, if we're going to survive in any kind of civilized, organized manner. So President Biden has given his tip of the hat to the 30 by 30 program. Let's see. And now we have Deb Haaland, a Native American woman, head of Department of Interior. And this is we're looking at the leftover legacy of the ranchers being politically organized, having taken their wish list to the Trump administration, who then handed it to the Department of the Interior, and suddenly the Park Service had the exact same list as what their future management plan was. So that's corruption. And corruption happens when people aren't looking. Well, goddamn it, we're looking now. We're watching, and we're speaking out against it, right? So this part of the world, we're fortunate to live here. The Point Reyes National Peninsula. If we get those ranchers out of there, we can start rehabilitating that place, and it can be, just like the marine sanctuaries, they become rich and productive and amazing in their life force and their productivity. And we can do that here, and we're gonna do it. And like I say, it's a matter of time. So we want to pressure Jared Huffman. We want to pressure Dianne Feinstein. And it doesn't hurt to pressure your local boards of supervisors or city councils or anybody that is elected to represent you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the good work. Keep it up.
And I love the honking. I love the support from everybody, all the locals. This is such a great opportunity to educate locals and tourists alike about what is actually happening out there. It surprises me that so few people actually know what is happening. So this is fantastic. I'm so glad you came out. We have another speaker, Ken Booley, who is a writer who lives in the area and has been writing about this situation. There he is. Okay, Ken, come on up.
I'm going to try to adhere to the 3 B's of public speaking. Be brief, be interesting, be gone. About being interesting, I'm going to tell you a little bit about public sentiment and about process. And I know that doesn't sound interesting. Matt made reference to it a little bit. Jared Huffman says that the ranches here are popular. He's been saying that for 8 or 10 years. And when he said it before, one could think it's a mistake. It's an innocent mistake. He got that impression. But since the EIS has come out, we have a lot of data. we had over 6,700 people comment on the new plan. And we read all those comments. It's a lot of work. We had volunteers read the comments. 91% are against the plan. 94% who endorsed any particular plan endorsed Plan F, which is getting rid of ranching. So that gives you an idea of the public sentiment. Then we had 45,000 comments to the Coastal Commission about their consistency determination. There were 12 comments in favor of consistency, means in favor of ranching. Let me repeat that, not 1,200, not 12,000, 12. 3 of those were from Albert Strauss, 2 were from the Giacomini Dairy, 1 was from Marin Agricultural Land Trust.
45,000.
45,000. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this who doesn't stand to gain financially directly from it. The Argus Courier in Petaluma. This is the belly of the beast, right? This is right in the middle of agricultural Sonoma County. Ran a poll that said, do cows belong in Point Reyes Station or not?
No.
80% said no. I know 80's not 95, but that's in Petaluma. So all the data we have says this is very, very, very unpopular. If you're going to care about data, if you're going to care about facts, which Huffman supposedly does, you cannot go around saying that. If he says it again, it's a lie. We've told him directly to his face he's got it wrong. He said the ranches are very popular in Point Reyes National Seashore. There's a mistake and then there's a lie. You also hear that, well, you're not local. Local opinions matter. Well, I live adjacent to the park. Nobody lives more local than me. But it's not about me. Here's the thing. It's a national park. National. The word national is in there. Did I mention national? So if someone was logging in Yosemite or mining in Denali or in Acadia or in the Everglades, we all have the same right to complain and to have a say. I don't care where you live, and I don't care if you're a ranching family. It's a national park. In fact, people who make money from it maybe should be excused from the debate. Maybe their opinion counts a little less than people who just care about the environment. Now, a little bit about the process. So about the process, we wouldn't be here without a lawsuit. Our friend, Representative Huffman, said, and I'm quoting again, this has been an incredibly open public process. I'll describe a little to you, and you decide if you think it was incredibly open and public. First of all, a lawsuit. Western Watershed, Resource Renewal Institute, Center for Biological Diversity sued the park to update the management plan in the first place. Otherwise, it would just be business as usual. Nobody would be here. We wouldn't know about it. Maybe some of us would know about it, but we certainly wouldn't have the movement we have. So it's a lawsuit. Okay. Ansel Adams said it's horrifying that you have to fight your own government to save the environment. Besides that, and Matt alluded to this as well, the fix was in on the plan. The proposed plan is everything the ranchers asked for. Jared Huffman, there's that name again, introduced a bill in the House for 20-year leases and other things the ranchers wanted. A few years back, it got shot down, thank God. Otherwise, we'd have much less ability to fight this. There's a letter. There's a letter from the Ranchers Association to the Park Service in 2014 saying this is what we want in the park. They wanted 20-year leases. It's in the plan. They wanted diversified livestock, which is terrible for local predator populations. It's in the plan. They wanted row crops. It's in the plan. They wanted B&Bs. It's in the plan. They wanted mobile slaughterhouses. It's in the plan. Are you starting to get the idea? They said that the model for all this is Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio. which is where, by the way, they had sharpshooters kill a bunch of deer because they couldn't figure out a humane way to do it. And who was the superintendent of that park at that time? Craig Kenkel. So I'm sure it's a coincidence that he got moved here. I'm sure that's a coincidence. They also asked in the same letter, this 2014 letter, look this up, you can't believe it. It's a draft for the plan. That's exactly what it is. They asked for historic designation for the ranches in the park. Well, guess what? They got it. And guess what? Before they got it, they had to withdraw an application for historic designation for the indigenous sites in the park. That application for 10 years, moldered, and then the application for the ranches got approved in about a year. I'm sure there's a reason why the application for the rich white families took a year and the application for the Miwoks got no attention for 10 years. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. So, I mean, the fix was in. If you think those things are a coincidence, I want to sell you one of the Farallon Islands. Talk to me later. I've got a deed here. It's bullshit. We've had enough literal and figurative bullshit. We're being lied to. Just tell us the truth. I mean, if you want to back the ranching families, just tell us the truth, Jared. Just say, I made a deal with some influential, wealthy, status quo family, and I gave them my word. Just tell us the truth. All right, so try and help out. Everybody try and help out. You're here today. Thank you very much. Don't forget, there's no greater mistake than doing nothing just because you can do a little. Read the environmental impact study. Okay, before the impact study, you could say, I think Skylar, thank you, Skylar, for all your work, said something about this. It might look pretty. It's a green pasture, it's bucolic. It's certainly better than a mall or a Knots Landing helicopter pad and so on. Okay, I get it. The EIS indicates there are 24,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases coming out of the park, out of the ranches in the park every year. 24,000 tons. And that will continue under Plan B. That's not mitigated. The waterways are full of E. coli and other things. That will continue. It's not mitigated. This is in the park's study. I am not inclined to say anything I can't back up. I just have to quote the park, right? So these are public facts. There's erosion, there's invasive species, there's habitat displacement, there's a mess out there from these ranches. That 24,000 metric tons, by the way, is 20% of all ag greenhouse gases in Marin County, which is a lot. It's the greatest single source of greenhouse gas out of the park. It's a lot. Jared Huffman has said, and I quote, we need to do everything in our power to fight climate change. So, I mean, he's usually pretty good on stuff like Matt said. I have voted for him in the past. It'll never happen again. But if you say that, do you mean it? Do you mean it, or do you mean when it's convenient for me and it's not going to cost me any money support? That's what we're getting. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Miyoko.
I want to thank you all again for coming. Now, I'm going to talk about something that he mentioned, the historic ranches of Point Reyes. As people that are trying to show compassion for animals, we also have to show compassion for people. And so the locals often talk about what is going to happen to the ranches, to the local ranches and the 60 farmhands that live out there. What will happen to their livelihoods? So I'm going to just talk about that for a minute. Now, I was talking to Bob McClure, who is one of the ranchers, last year, and he told me that he was getting half the price of milk today that he got 10 years ago. Dairy, because of consolidation, farmers are no longer in charge of their own destiny. They don't set prices like the milkman that used to deliver milk to your doorstep. It's all consolidated. The members of co-ops, they are told how much they're going to get for their milk. And farmers around the country are struggling and going bankrupt, sometimes even committing suicide. Dairy has been on the decline since the 1970s. What about these people? I can say the historic ranches of Point Reyes, and that's what the locals say, and they want to protect them. But what about coal? Is the coal industry also historic as they blow up the mountaintops of West Virginia? Should we also protect coal because it's historic? At some point, we who live today have to make a decision about what type of future we want to create. And we have to create that future. We have responsibility and we have an opportunity to redefine the future. And we have to make choices sometimes that are hard and that may disrupt certain livelihoods. Now, what can we do about those livelihoods? I can tell you right now that there is a consortium of nonprofits, investors, and industry leaders that are coming together and pulling together funds to help animal agriculture transition to growing crops or to other livelihoods. At Miyoko's, at my company, we are part of that. We have an initiative to help one California dairy farmer transition to growing crops. And let's not forget that dairy farmers today get about 42% of their income from government subsidies, not from actual selling of milk. Now, we can help a farmer transition, and we are going to support them. We are going to give them the resources to transition. And we have now joined a consortium of investors and nonprofits that are going to help farmers all over the country transition to growing crops, so they too can be part of the new economy that is taking place under their feet. This is the future we need to create, but we must focus on the animals, but we can't forget the people, because those people have voices. They also have lives, and they impact their communities. So we have to bring them along too. Compassion goes out to everybody. And those are the types of activists we must be. Not the angry activists, but the compassionate ones that help everybody. Let's find solutions to help so that they also can take part. At Miyoko's, I'm letting you know, of the 60 farmhands, if Point Reyes, National Seashore returns to wildlands, we will employ up to 20 of those farmhands. So I'm putting it out there. We already reached out to McClure, and we were told that all his farmhands had been hired by some other dairy. I don't know if that's true or not, but we have jobs opening, available to people, and we pay a living wage, matching 401k, all health benefits, free meals, etc. So, yeah, it's a great place to work in Petaluma. So, this is the future we must create. We must all band together. Let's not just complain. Let's show them the solutions. Let's show them the possibilities. Let's show them a brighter future where wildlife can thrive. Remember, whose earth is this? To whom does this planet belong? Is it just us? It belongs to all living beings, and we have that responsibility to protect it for all. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you, PETA, for organizing this. Thank you, everyone, for lending a voice. Let's fight to return the land to the natives who took care of it, to the animals who have a right to be here. Let's restore the wildlife habitat to the way it was, to the glory that it once was. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here today. It's so amazing and so inspiring to see people coming out in full force for the elks and the environment. As many of you know, the Thule elk is the rarest species of elk, existing only in California. They need to be protected. They were driven to near extinction once before, and we won't let it happen again. Because of drought, these elk don't have enough food and water to survive. Hundreds of elk died from thirst and starvation, but the NPS refuses to let these animals out of the barren pens that they're trapped in so they can forage. Activists have tried to bring them water before, out of desperation, 4 times, but the Park Service has stopped them, and many more elk will die if NPS refuses to give them access to grazing land and water sources just to appease local ranchers. So tens of thousands of people have demanded that the Park Service do the right thing. Point Reyes is a wildlife sanctuary, not a factory farm.
Yeah, that's right.
National Park Service, do your job. Protect this area and its wildlife. Stop the Thule elk slaughter. Give these animals access to food and water. And we will not stand by while these elk die. We won't stand by while Thule